Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. Slightly off topic for this one, but quite related. I want to talk today about how to beat your nemesis. Um, Very grand title, and I'm sorry I'm not going to give you all the ins and outs of it, but I want to give you a general framework for thinking about how to deal with somebody that you struggle with, fencing-wise. And most people in tournaments will have come across a fencer that just doesn't mesh well with their fencing in some way, shape, or form. I had one first Albion Cup that ran. Albion Cup's the biggest tournament in the UK. Cleaned up my pools, cleaned up my eliminations, got to the semi-final, lost 10-0, right? Because I found this one fencer who, I was fencing well that day, and didn't fence particularly worse against him. It's just that the style of matchup didn't work. So when I say your nemesis, that's what I mean. It might not be one person. It might be a style of fencer. It might be something like this. Someone that you struggle with, or something that you struggle with to come across how to solve it. And I'm not going to be able to tell you like every single possible way, but I want to give you a few things to think about in terms of how to break down the problem. And those can be categorized into two things. One is what can you do while you're still fencing them, and the second is what can you do after the fact in training so that the next time you come across them, you're kind of better and able to deal with whatever they've got. So the first thing I would say is when you've recognized you're in a situation where what you are doing just does not work against the person that you're facing, the first thing I would say is you need to do something different. Right? It seems obvious, right? It seems very obvious. And when I say that, I don't mean tweak what you're doing or do it better. I mean do something fundamentally different, right? Because normally what's happening here is there's something about the way that you're fencing that is giving the opponent the exact opportunity that they want, and they're taking it, and you keep giving it to them, right? And most of the time when you have this mismatch, that's what's going on, right? You are giving them what they want, and you don't recognize it. And I think the default sort of pattern we fall into is when the thing you did doesn't work, is to say, okay, I'll do it better, right? But that, in this particular circumstance, very rarely in a tournament context or in the context of one fight, is I'll do the same thing but better, the correct answer, and this is particularly where it's worse. So if they're always tagging you when you're stepping into measure, you need to think about a different way of stepping into measure, right? Or try and encourage them to come at you, try and encourage them to do the first strike, right? So that you're no longer giving them this thing. Or if they're always charging in and you're being caught flat-footed, well, expect it, right? Expect to not have to be flat-footed, but to be retreating as they charge in or something like that, right? But fundamentally, you need to switch up what you're doing, right? Ideally, you'll work out what they're doing and come up with the best thing that goes against it. But even if all you do is just do something else randomly, you probably have a better result than trying to do what you're currently doing. So in a context of a fight, you find someone where your fencing doesn't match against them, just do something else, right, first. If you can think of nothing else, just try another thing, right? And it might go badly as well, right, particularly if they're very good, but it'll probably go better for you just for that. When you are then going and reviewing and thinking about it after the fact and trying to decide how to beat them next time, then there's a few different things that you should group the way of solving the problem into that you should then try and factor into your training, right? And the thing that people will tend to gravitate towards is, how do I beat that thing, right? When they do it, so let's just say it's a mainline thrust down the center, right? You're really struggling dealing with thrusts. Your first thought is going to be, okay, how do I defend against the thrust? And it's a good thought to have. It is something you should practice, and it is something you should train. But of course, the better that they are at that thing, the harder it's going to be for you to do it. And perhaps the people in your club aren't as good as them. So you're never going to be training fully for that one. And you should do it, but it shouldn't be your only thing that you're training for, right? Because the other thing you need to think about is, what is the situation that's giving them the perfect opportunity to strike this? What am I doing that is leading to them having the opportunity for this? And a common one with this, to stick with my thrusting example, a common one with that is having guards that are kind of too close to the body, right? Not giving yourself enough distance to be able to properly displace a thrust, a very conservative thrust coming in. So you might be thinking about, okay, well, this guard is particularly vulnerable to it, so I need to change the guards I'm doing against it. Or it might be a distance thing. It might be saying, okay, I'm stepping into distance, too slowly. I need to do this differently, or I need to step into difference differently. So thinking about not how to counteract it, but how to prevent them from doing it in the first place, by not giving them the opportunity where it's the perfect moment. If they're someone who does it every single time, that's easier to do. If there's someone who does it occasionally, that's much harder, right? Because you've got to worry about the other things that they're going to be doing as well, and not giving opportunities for those. And the final thing that you need to factor into your training is whether there's something that is the nemesis of them, essentially, right? So if they're always waiting for something, right, what is the best thing to prevent that from happening, right? Not giving it to them, attacking them, keeping on the back foot, right? If they're always keeping at a wide measure, how do you prevent that, right? Or what's the thing that's best against someone with a wide measure? If they're always crashing in, what's the thing that's best against that, right? So essentially trying to work out, okay, this is the thing I'm struggling with. What is the equivalent nemesis to that? And training that, right? And all of these things are things you don't have to do outside of the tournament match, unless you've kind of already got them in your repertoire. Obviously, if you have a massive toolkit and you're able to do this on the fly and say, okay, this didn't work, I'm going to correct it, fine, go ahead. Most of us can't do that, right? Most of us have to do some training before we can start pulling these things off. But as I say, when you've done this, the best way to analyze it, by the way, is to have video of it. So watch the video back, or ask your friends who watched it, or just think about it. Think about what was the thing that they were doing and how you could directly counter it. Think about what was the thing that you were doing and how does that create an opportunity for them to do that. And think about what alternative actions could be done that prevent or sort of contradict or are the nemesis of the original thing in the first place. And if you do that, and hopefully next time, once you train them and once you got them down, then your nemesis will be thinking, damn it, this person is now my nemesis, and kind of reversing the trend there. Hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.